and welcome to the At Peace Parents podcast. I'm Casey, and I'm here to empower you in your decision-making as a parent of a demand-avoidant child. My goal is to share insights that will generate aha moments and support your connection with your child. I'm a mom of two amazing little boys, one of whom is PDA, and I've worked with hundreds of parents just like you to teach them how to lead their child out of burnout and find the clarity, peace, and sense of community they need. Real quick, guys, I want to sincerely thank all of you who have left us a 5-star review on the podcast. Every time you leave a review, we spread awareness about PDA and help families with PDA kids and teens find stability and hope. Now let's get on with the episode. Hi, everybody. I'm Casey Ehrlich, and welcome to Parenting PDA Your Way. I'm a mom of 2 PDA children and the founder of At Peace Parents. Once a week, on Fridays, I coach a parent of a pathologically demand-avoidant child or teen to help the parent make progress towards more stability and peace in their home. In doing so, my goal is to support them and you to practice new skills and bring non-judgment, compassion, and maybe a little humor to the toughest situations we all face. Welcome, and let's get started. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Casey.
Hi, I'm Pam.
Nice to meet you.
You as well. Yes.
Where are you tuning in from?
Well, I live on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. Right now, I'm here with my non-PDA kid in just outside of Seattle, actually, on a little getaway.
Oh, nice.
I'm in a hotel room.
Very cool. So it's more morning time for where you are, correct?
Yes. Yeah, it's just 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just finished the coffee.
Awesome. Feeling caffeinated and ready to go.
Ready to go. That's right.
Very good. Well, I have your question here and we can dive right in. I can read it, or if you want to reformulate the question.
You can go ahead and we can go from there.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Here is your question. Feel like living in purgatory, not in burnout, but also still very narrow existence, and child isn't happy. Twin PDAers. One wants social connection so much, but as they get older and have less experience in the world, he leans towards inappropriate topics, etc., as he doesn't know how to socialize. He is used to hanging out with his twin, where it's safe to say mean things, etc. How do I help teach them to be their true self in public while still staying within some social norms? Also, with twin 10-year-old PDAers, I have 100 other things I could ask Casey about, or you about. They have the same core issues, disabilities, but present and react differently, which is so interesting to see. Also makes parenting even harder. Yeah. So are you in Seattle with one of your twins, or do you have more?
No. We have a third, younger. So the twins are 10, both PDAers, and a 7-year-old who, for all intents and purposes, so far seems relatively neurotypical. So I'm just with my 7-year-old. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And your 10-year-old PDAers, just out of curiosity, are they identical, fraternal?
No, they're fraternal. So genetically, they're just brothers. Yeah, so they look different and they're not identical. Yeah.
Got it. And it sounds like they have somewhat different expressions of how their nervous system reacts to losses of autonomy and equality.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when they react so differently, it wouldn't be so differently as the fact that one is internalized and one of them's externalized, because that would be definitely opposite. They're both definitely externalized.
Okay.
But it's just more nuanced, like the way that they both don't react to the same situations the same way. And in the world, one of them definitely seems like he has a harder time, and like to the outside world probably seems like, oh, maybe, that kid's having a real hard time and that type of thing, such high anxieties that shows certain behaviors. And then the other one is just the kid that everybody thinks has a huge attitude problem. And he comes across as very capable. And he's he's just really good at putting that mask on and putting up a really big defensive barrier most of the time.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. So both externalized in the sense that generally their nervous system is more fight flight oriented when they're perceiving threat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're both sort of socially motivated.
Yes. One of them does better socially and has had like a couple buddies and that type of thing. But he says that he doesn't care about other people. He's like, I don't care what those people think about me. And again, that defense mechanism. And then the other one who just struggles a lot more seems to really struggle more with anxiety and was pulled from school earlier and that type of thing. You can tell he wants to socialize and he wants it, and he is just not capable of it. Like he just struggles so hard. And then, over the years now, like this started when they were 5, 6, and, they had some little friends type thing. And now they're 10 and, he's been out of school for longer and he's, doesn't have those connections anymore. And I can tell that, it's not good on his self-confidence, on his self-esteem, all those type of things. And I do feel truly lucky a lot of the time that the fact that they do have each other. Mm-hmm. I can imagine how isolating and more it would be hard on your mama heart to have that type of thing and then not have anybody, but they do have each other. They are best friends and arch nemesis, depending on the moment of the day. So yeah, as he progresses and works through this and figuring out how to come out into the world now, I just feel like if he could build some relationships outside of the house, it would help him. I think he wants it, but he doesn't want it enough that he's not capable of joining a group or that type of thing.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to make sure that we're oriented towards what you want to talk about. And my perception from your question and what you're saying is that you'd like to focus on one of the twins more than the other because of your concern with self-esteem, self-concept, his ability to socialize over the long term. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it would be, this socialization piece is a great thing to talk about today. I do think that in my mind, I put the twins together a little bit more than that because one of them has like I said, the anxiety piece that makes him not be able to do it. And the other one who puts up the negative barrier more often, he wants the connection too. And he's a little bit better at it, but I still think that he is quite lacking as well. So, we can focus on the one that has the bigger issues. And in my head, so many of the things just go together anyway.
Well, this is your session. This is our time, your conversation. So I really want it to serve you. So we can absolutely.
I'm sure I'll bring in the other guy.
Both. Yeah. So are they both home?
Partly. So Miles is the one that puts up more of the defensive. And he was going to school. He was going to public school and doing okay. And then Desmond is the one that struggles, Des, more. And he's been pulled out of school since grade 1. They're in grade 5 now. However, about a year and a half ago, we were living in a really small town with not a lot of resources in one school, and Desmond was never going to be able to go back to that school ever. So we moved to a place that had an independent school that for mostly autistic kids. And so we moved, and since then, Desmond is now going a couple days a week, and Miles is also only going a couple days a week because bottom line is that they can't really support both of them at the same time.
Okay. So they're rotating?
Yeah. So they go opposite days. One goes 2 days a week and the other goes 2 days a week. It's only a 4-day-a-week program. So that's another struggle is because, that can kind of lead into the socialization too, is that, because they're so comfortable with each other, it's like having somebody to equalize with against all the time. If you're in an uncomfortable situation like school or anytime you have a little bit of discomfort, it's the easiest to lash out on your twin brother. And so in that respect, it's really hard for, they can have some successful times, they have tried to go at the same time, but ultimately it's too hard for the school.
Yeah. Okay. And how long, Pam, have you been? I'm making an assumption here, so correct me. I assume they both have an autism diagnosis?
Yeah.
Okay. Do they have other diagnoses?
Like PDA.
Or
And
ADHD or dyslexia?
yes,
Or
yes. Desmond has ADHD and, that coordination disorder and like a couple things like that.
dyspraxia?
Yes. No,
Okay.
it's mostly
Okay.
the ADHD. And that's
Got it.
definitely a piece that I feel is really harder with him is you can see just the way that his mind is really battling against each other with like the PDA and the autism and ADHD, with the routine versus no routine and all that kind of stuff. I can see that is contributing to his struggles as well. But Miles does not have ADHD as far as I know.
Okay, super helpful to give us a picture of their unique brain wiring. And how long would you say that you've been really focused on the PDA lens versus, more of scaffolding or behavioral modification around the autism piece?
It's been 4 or 5 years. We were really lucky. We came into PDA really easily. We had an amazing OT that right when things were kind of starting to see some struggles, she was like, have you ever heard of PDA? And then was like, okay, now you need to go to this assessor. And it's been a very clean line of diagnoses for us, which I feel really thankful for, hearing so many stories.
Unusual.
Yeah. And especially Miles. Miles would have been a kid that he wouldn't have gotten a diagnosis had we not learned so much from the first one. For sure. He would just be labeled as like the bad kid, for sure. So yeah, around when they were 5 years old is the time that we learned a lot. And our assessor actually like gave us your name and some other PDA well-known people. And we kind of got on the train like pretty quickly. Also another like just interesting thing that I think got us maybe on board with it was that Desmond, through the process of diagnoses, we also found out he had a congenital heart defect and he had open heart surgery.
Oh my God. Sorry,
so right after, he didn't have the diagnosis yet. And right after the surgery, when we did have the assessment, I was like, wow, he's been doing so much better since the surgery. Like maybe it was just part of how his body worked, had his nervous system elevated, that type of thing. And the assessor was like, no, he's actually just been really accommodated for the last like 3 months post-surgery, right? Like he hasn't needed to do anything he didn't want. You've been handing him his food. He's been eating whatever, like all of the things that you talk about basically. And we were kind of like, made me realize, I was like, oh wow, yeah, I guess it wasn't the physical part of the surgery. It was actually how we were managing like post.
And that's a really good insight. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, he was doing really well for a few months and then a couple months, and then he was back at school. This was now grade 1. And he only lasted about 2 months in school after that. And we pulled him out pretty quickly after a couple of traumatic things. And so, yeah, so I think, of course, I also feel like this is the whole radical acceptance and blah, 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 is that like we learned about PDA early and have tried to what we thought put in these, low demand, all this stuff. But as you learn throughout the process is like, you learn a little bit more, right? Like at the beginning, I was like, that's it. Let's pick up the family and go on a camping road trip for 6 months or 6 weeks. And, we'll just spend time together as a family and that'll really reset everyone. And now I look back and I was like, that had so many demands for him, but yeah, we've been learning as we go with trying to keep in the framework, but obviously we're a lot farther ahead now than we were back then. But we've never, done sticker charts and, we're never involved in any of that kind of thing to change any behaviors.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. So the main concern I'm hearing is, so it sounds like you understand PDA quite well, right? You have high awareness.
Yeah.
I think whenever I meet a family who first talks about demands, I always remind them and have to remind myself that the actual root cause is the subconscious perception of not having autonomy externally or internally. So even the surgery could have been perceived as an internal loss of autonomy, plus the external of being in the hospital. That was then offset by all those accommodations, but still was an intense experience. That was a loss of autonomy. And then the perceived loss of equality, or when other people, structures, parents, teachers, siblings are above them, like winning, running faster, getting the last word. Like every single time the PDA brain perceives one of those two things, it's like a drop in the bucket of the nervous system accumulating. And so most families learn about PDA when the bucket is overflowing and they're in burnout. And then they work really hard with the accommodations to create a window of tolerance in the nervous system so they can start to access things like school, like your boys are accessing school, and hopefully basic needs, which is awesome, right? Like it is a nervous system disability. So right now you set up your life and worked incredibly hard to get them to this point where they're accessing school, some life, and basic needs.
Yeah.
But you want to keep expanding the window of tolerance, right? Yes. And help them keep coming back to their thinking brain and connection with safe people so that they can continue to learn and grow and develop.
Yeah. I think because it feels like it's been so long, you feel like maybe there should be a little bit more growth. I know that's not really the way we're supposed to look at it, but it feels like we've made so many changes and it's been so much time, and they're still like I said, they're often not like, they're not happy 10-year-old boys.
Yeah. So they still have more than one disability, right? They're autistic, they're PDA, and so we have things that disable them from accessing life in the same way, which can be frustrating because I'm sure they're highly intelligent and aware of what sometimes they're unable to do in the moment.
Yeah.
So I feel like this conversation, like the theme in my head that's coming up intuitively is like this razor's edge of like radically accepting the nervous system disability as it is and believing in growth, change, transformation, neuroplasticity, and possibility, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that is the razor's edge as a mother, because we're constantly discerning, am I trying to push too far? Am I expecting too much versus am I accommodating too much?
Right.
And I should be encouraging.
And every time I feel like I am trying to, with the PDA lens, like make a little bit of a step forward, it's just sometimes it works, and it's always the like 2 steps forward, 1 step back constantly.
Yeah.
Or 3 steps back,
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you one more question, and then we'll dive into how to think about this. So are they expressing to you or each other? You say they seem unhappy, but like, how do you know that? And is it related to not being as social as they would like to be, or is it more your observation that they don't have friends and that's stressful?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. Miles definitely has been saying that he feels like low and what he knows as depressed. He did have a couple friends where we moved from and now doesn't have that. And he's actually saying that he wants to, because the school he's in, he hasn't connected with anybody there. And he's now saying like, oh, I want to try someplace else to have it like it was when we were at the other place. And Desmond doesn't really verbalize it quite the same, but I can tell like when we're just like, if we're in a social situation, like even at Christmas with cousins, he really wants to hang out with them. Like, I think he gets a lot from that social interaction. He doesn't outwardly say like, I'd feel better if I had friends. I don't think he can quite fully grasp that, but he is also definitely jealous of the connections that Miles has, and will say like, oh, well, I just don't have any friends.
Yeah. Okay. And how much have you talked to them about PDA?
They're very aware.
They're very aware.
Yeah. And, and when I try to talk about, obviously putting a more positive spin on it and talking about the strengths of it, they'll always, especially Desmond, will just say, Mom, the only reason you can say anything good about PDA is because you don't have it. Like he definitely feels it.
Yeah.
And we try to, they know about equalizing, and like we've tried to use all that stuff for everybody to understand things better. So they are quite aware of it, and they know that they're autistic and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Been open about that from the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple things that are coming to mind, and I completely get this because Miles sounds very much like my older son, Cooper, and Desmond sounds more like my younger son, who's much more gravitates towards like Minecraft and video games, and right now is home and doesn't want to leave the house. And, my husband and I were talking yesterday actually about how, like, with Cooper, what sort of pulled him out of that recovery state into equilibrium was his special interest in other people. And when that's not present, like with William, we see more like there's not as much of a pull to leave the house to be with others. And he also seems to have more of that like sensory overwhelm, people energy overwhelm. Like even from kindergarten, he would like be on top of the playground and like other kids would want to play and he'd like not want to be around other kids, but wants friends, like, when his brother has friends over, wants to be around it. So I think the thing about PDA, and this might be a little different because both your children do have autism diagnoses, and I don't know exactly what degree that disables them in social communication, but the way I think about it with the PDA lens first is like often PDAers, not always, will have the social skills and understanding that they need to operate socially, but in the moment of socializing, they go into their survival brain and can't access those skills.
Yeah.
Right. Or like, they understand, like, don't call someone stupid, right? Cognitively. Like it's not complete oblivion to that social norm. But if another kid, I'm going to make it a little kid example, takes their toy or, does something in a game they're playing that they don't want, like grabs the video game first, the handheld thing, they might automatically be like, you're stupid, give it to me. So that's not a lack of skill.
It's the response.
That's a threat perception, right? And so for PDAers, what improves that over time is reducing the threat perception. And that's cumulative, right? And so right now, it sounds like both of your boys are close to that threshold where when they do get into social situations or at school, it's like they may tip over or not into the like nervous system driven behavior that they don't necessarily even want to be doing.
Right. Yeah. Miles, you can verbalize that. He'll be like, I didn't mean, he's aware of that. Yeah. But yeah, it feels like they are definitely on the edge a lot of the time.
Yeah. And so the question becomes, like, given that they understand themselves, the question becomes, like, is this is going to be a triggering question, and I don't know the answer, but like, is this just their level of disability?
Yeah.
And we want to work on accepting that and maneuvering within that as a constraint, or is it more the accumulation of stress and there's areas that we could look to increase autonomy and equality rather than demands, but autonomy and equality, like at the very root of their life.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think I got one of each. Like, I feel like Miles has more of the skills and needs the bigger window in order to stay there. He's better at masking. He's better at that kind of thing and is more aware. And I think Desmond, I see that it's probably a bit more of his disability. I would still like to think that we can like improve on it a little bit for like his, so that he feels more comfortable socializing and can do that kind of thing. But I do see it being a little bit more complicated for him.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so up until this point, so I think it's important that you're naming this, because when we started, it was sort of like the twins were in the same category, right? And so I think perhaps we can start at a different starting point of expectation for Desmond and think about socializing like one or two steps below, not in importance, but in terms of how we think of it. You know, like if we're thinking about it as a hierarchy, like the ideal is that they're independent and they can connect with others and have reciprocal relationships and joint attention and all that stuff. But if we could kind of dissolve that, like Miles may be more capable of like what we think of in our culture as the desired types of relationships, right? Desmond, we might need to deconstruct that ideal of how his connections are going to look, especially in this stage, right? So can we think about things like focusing on parallel play, connections through special interests, virtual parallel play, connections with animals, strengthening the relationship with you and his family, right? And really emphasizing that as equally important and meaningful as friends.
Yeah, I can see that. I feel like I've tried to have him like with Minecraft, and has in the past been a huge Minecraft kid. We've just never gotten into that whole like online friendship kind of thing, because I know it can be a slippery slope with certain things and finding like a safe space for it and stuff. So he's never played online with anybody. We've tried to do some of those OutSchool classes, if you've ever heard of those. And for whatever reason, they've never worked. We've tried them like many times over the various years, and always usually Minecraft. And I don't know what part of it is, but he's never been able to do more than one or, a few in a row. And then he's like, that's it. And he turns it off.
Yeah, he needs someone to be in Minecraft that he can equalize against, control, and destroy their things and like hit them, and then move into a more collaborative play.
Right. Yeah. And he's kind of off of Minecraft right now.
Yeah.
As well, which I've noticed as, he's gotten a bit older, which I'm like, oh, I yearn for the Minecraft days. So yeah, I guess a good idea would be to look into how he can safely do that on a different platform.
Well, I'm thinking less about free-for-all open source connections and more about, I'm just going to like give you the example of what my younger one sort of needed with socializing as he was coming out of burnout. Because we did the same thing. Like, oh, let's try and like, I have a neighbor whose kid is home unschooling, homeschooling, loves Minecraft. Can we both go in the same server and they can play together? We did a social group with the occupational therapist and other kids, but he would sort of like just go in the corner and not want to play in the shared server, or like same thing, OutSchool. But what he really needed, and I'm thinking about this through the context of having a sibling who's more dominant or externalized, that he may, in order to access feeling confident with socializing, need to have an experience where he can really be above and equalize against a trusted person for an extended period of time. So
he definitely has to conform to the other twin a lot of the time. Miles will definitely take the control, and I feel like Desmond compromises, which, the cumulative demands, like that's sometimes I think that when he is accommodating Miles, I'm like, oh, that shows that he's got a bit of a window, that he's able to do that, because sometimes he doesn't. And then there's like two PDAers equalizing on each other. But again, if he's continually compromising with Miles, he's going to have those cumulative.
Because if his, and this is what I think happened with my younger son, who's more internalized and easier, quote unquote, his brain knew it wasn't going to win. Like if we're just thinking about the amygdala and all its job is like survive, detect threat and survive. It's like if you have a sibling that's dominant, even if your body wants to go in fight or flight, the amygdala knows, hey, we're going to go into freeze shutdown because you're not going to win this.
Right.
Right. And so he's still getting the activation. It's just not able to come out in the same way. So we're going to have to brainstorm together, Pam, because you know much more about the context of what he would engage in. But like, if I had a magic wand for Desmond, I would want to give him like an hour or two each day where he could engage with someone who would do exactly his special interest, he could correct and criticize while he's playing, whatever it is, and that person respond with self-deprecating humor, silliness, and like total acceptance to let him offset some of that accumulation, because it doesn't sound like there's any place where he might be getting that socially. Yeah. And it often has to start with the parent, and it's really hard and painful.
Yeah. He does spend a lot of time, like obviously we now don't, like my husband, we're like a one working person family now, obviously. Yeah. And so he does get a lot of one-on-one, but probably not in that self-deprecating type of way. I feel like we use the time with him to try to like work on things or try to do some learning, because he does show interest in doing some schooling type stuff too. Not all the time, but sometimes. Or we play a lot of games, and I do let him in all the time. He thinks that I've never won a game of Uno in my life, but you know, he plays a lot more complicated games, especially with his dad, just the more like analytical. I don't even know what they're called, but I'm not sure that he is getting that from that, because he still has all those constraints of those. Like he does like to play them, but this would still be a lot of rules and a lot of all those kinds of things to follow. So I have felt like it's been a way for him to like have fun and engage and stuff, but maybe he's not like off-gassing all of that cumulative stuff in the way that I maybe thought that he was.
So what would it feel like? This is going to sound kind of crazy or radical, but like, because you're so far along, I feel like you might be open to it.
Open to anything at this point.
Yeah, I understand. What would it feel like to make the whole goal of his time, the one-on-one, not learning per se, not learning skills, not learning to engage, or even like how a neurotypical brain would think of as having fun, but actually allowing that piece of like seeming unhappy and getting to control another person and have that person respond with lightness, radical acceptance, leaning into the controlling behavior for like an hour each day. Yeah. And that's the assignment, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's what you're
I feel doing. Like to try to do that. I mean, again, at this point, like, why not try anything? When I think about it practically, I have a hard time imagining what that looks like. Just he's got that real ADHD piece too, right? Like he's the kid that is like pacing around the house being like, I don't know what to do. I don't like, and obviously being like, oh, let's do this. Oh, you know, does not work. In fact, makes it worse. And, you know, so we try to strew and like we try to do all the things, but he definitely has a hard time figuring out what he wants to do. Like oftentimes you just have to like start playing a dice game and then he'll come over or whatever. So, but like, is that a loss of autonomy? If like, but is he choosing to come over? Because
it's not, because And this is where the energetic piece comes in. So you just got to be in an energy of offering, okay, he's ADHD, he has trouble with ideation. I'm going to give him a visual and sensory cue of an option.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like he can come or not. Total autonomy.
Yeah.
So often that's helpful scaffolding, and you can lean even deeper into the self-deprecation by like, I'm trying to set up the 3D printer and I just can't figure it out. Or like, I keep playing this dice game and like, I'm messing up my math. So it's kind of like an invitation for him to be dominant or know more than you. And we can experiment with it. So I think what you're saying is like, it's hard to be like, we're going to do an hour of something because he, it can be him just walking around criticizing you. That's what's needed. I know to people listening, it's like, they're going to be like, what is this woman talking about? But like, we want Des to have that subconscious sense of felt safety. And it's from that place and being received with like true radical acceptance of what his nervous system is doing for a consistent period of time that I think like he can get into a more learning space or a connected space outside of the home.
I think over time, as like he has made progress in different areas, that again, it's the fluctuating capacity and you just like think that you should keep on moving along, and really we need to strip that back down again to a certain degree to then build back up the bigger window, which like I kind of knew, but at the same time didn't really know how to do it anymore, because it feels like we have been. But yeah, I'll have to think about what that looks like for him, for sure.
Yeah, and you have been, but now you're also doing 2 days of school with him.
He loves, like he wants to go more days, which is so wonderful. It's after so many years of him being home. He's not in a classroom, and he's with a EA one-on-one. But I mean, we're so happy that he has found, and he says that he really enjoys being around people that are more like him. And
yeah, that's awesome.
So, I mean, part of me maybe knows that it's just like the baby steps are so small sometimes that you start to, parenting and spiraling. And then,
yeah. So the thing we always want to come back to that we're tracking is like, how's his nervous system activation? How is his access to basic needs? And how is his connection and engagement with safe people? And as long as those three things over longer time horizons continue to improve or stay steady as you add more back in, like a school, right? Like maybe he slowed down on like some of those things, or like you see less engagement when he gets home. But as long as we're not moving backwards and you're adding back in new exposure and increasing his frustration tolerance within that, using that window, we can still see that as progress. It's just that if we look at some of the more typical indicators of like academic success or being, back at school every single day or how many friends they have, that's going to be an even longer time horizon.
Yeah.
But everything underneath those things, learning, connection, empathy, understanding cause and effect, is going to be coming from a regulated nervous system, a window of tolerance, and being in the thinking brain, which we can use the proxy of those indicators to know we're steadily improving on that, or at least staying the same as we add back new things like a move or a new school or moving from the home to learning outside the home. So it does sound like you're still making really good progress. I mean, we didn't go through your indicators.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has made a lot of progress in the last couple of years, and so I need to remind myself of that. And he is doing better. I guess it just because he seems to want more. It's just hard. Yeah. And then I look at Miles, and in the last little bit, he's gone backwards to his window. So I need to, it's always like that too with the two of them. It's always like it's when one of them's doing a little bit better, the other one can often go back a little bit, which is confusing.
How long ago did you guys move?
Like 18 months ago.
Okay.
It hasn't been that long. And last year we were really like, we have no expectations. We just want them to start going and getting comfortable, and we'll build from there. And also, like with the move, we were renting, like we've moved houses twice. Mm-hmm. So that's like a huge thing, especially for Desmond. He's the kid that is, doesn't like it when we got a new TV,
Yeah.
Much change. So in that respect, I think that sometimes it's hard to think about like how many micro changes he's had to get used to. And yeah, I mean, I guess the whole like just accepting where he is and realizing that he is doing a little bit better. But this whole radical acceptance thing is very tricky.
It is. It is very, very tricky, but I'll tell you the two things that have helped me and continue to help me even on a day like today, like before we got on the call, is just remembering that radical acceptance also has to take place in the present moment. Like, we don't have to accept anything about the future because the future is still at play.
Yeah, so, that's hard too, is I feel like you trying to do all the right things to set him up now, because I was so worried about the teen years and what that can look like, and self-medicating and all these things that I am really quite scared of the upcoming years. So I think that is also why I feel this like intense need to like get them at a good place now,
But they are at a good place. They're at a really good place. I mean, you've done an amazing job stabilizing and keeping your family stable, even within moves and house changes and a twin dynamic. I mean, they're in a good place, and you're building on that. It's just the radical acceptance piece comes from like, my life is really hard and my kid's life is harder than I wish it was. And can I bring that awareness of that truth and say, like, this belongs as part of my human experience and theirs? And can I bring non-judgment to my reactions to that, and some self-compassion, right? Of like, I'm angry that my kids have to suffer. I'm angry that I have to suffer.
I just don't know what to do with all of that energy. Do you know what I mean? I feel I've heard you say these things, and I try, but it's still just really hard watching them suffer,
Yeah.
I don't know how you ever like really get used to it in a way, I mean, you do to a certain degree, but
I don't think you get used to it, but you can develop a practice that dissolves the resistance to it. Because I think there's two things going on. There's the pain and of the emotion, the physical sensation or the thought. And then there's our reaction to the thought of like, I'm bad. I'm not a good mother. They're never going to be successful. They'll never be independent or have friends, right? Like, it's like we see what's true in the present moment, and it is true. Right now, Desmond's having trouble accessing friends, and Miles has a smaller window of tolerance than he used to, and that probably makes behaviors bigger. That's true, right? And like, I can't cite the research, but I heard that like by sitting with that emotion of like, I feel like sadness and pain in my chest, or I feel tears coming up. Can I sit with that for 90 seconds and not try and avoid it or make a story about it? Because I don't believe that Des or Miles is destined to never have friends, or that they're not going to grow.
Right.
But in order for us to, as parents, stay in the energy of not controlling, we have to accept that we don't have control, right? And that is the most accommodating thing for a PDAer, because it's the energy of true non-attachment.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we go back to the root cause, they read the energy of, I'm trying to control this. And that reads as, I don't have autonomy and this person is above me trying to direct my life.
Right. Yeah, they're really into D&D right now, as a lot of 10-year-old boys, and I worked so hard at finding a D&D group, blah blah blah. It took months for this group to come to fruition. Gave all sorts of front loading to them about the kid, like just all the things. And the first group was supposed to be last night and they chose not to go.
Yeah.
So it's like you try to set them up, and because I was like, oh, maybe they'll meet some other kids that, I mean, they love D&D, they love playing D&D. I was actually thought that special interest level would put them past, their anxiety of like starting a new something, and it didn't. So, and then you're like, oh man, like you just try so hard, but you don't have the control, right? Like,
yeah. And so, like, how do we move that energy? Like, that's a deep question, right? We could do a couple hours on that one because it's going to be unique to you. But often the energy gets tangled up in our own experience, like our own neurodivergence, our own nervous system, our own stories we tell from our own childhood. So there are practices like, I do meditation, yoga, havening. I've done a lot of trauma work to try and disentangle what I feel in the present moment and all the other things about that's going to like keep you stuck, which is the story. My kids are never going to have friends. They're never going to be independent. I'm not a good mom, right? That actually isn't objectively true, but that's what it feels like when they don't go to D&D.
Yeah. And I mean, I say that to myself, like, I know I'm not a bad mom. I mean, even though you still think it a million times, but deep down, like, I know I'm not. But the constant mini failures make it hard to keep that narrative going,
Yeah. I understand.
I'm sure.
Yeah. But I think, for you, you're so well versed in it. You have all the tactics and you've practiced it. You understand it. I think I recommended one experiment, which was like the tactic of using more equality accommodations with Des deliberately to let him offset that perception of being below, which is probably pretty ingrained in the twin dynamic.
Yeah.
And letting go of some of the learning and moving forward energy when he's home, right? Because he's really doing stuff at school and in his twin dynamic. But below and beyond the tactics is really the energetic piece, the like true letting go of like, well, what if it's always going to be like this? Like, how would I as a mom still find joy in my life if this is the level of functioning we stay at?
That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah. And, I've had to go through that thought process with my older son, who's doing very well, but I also worry about the teen years. Like, we, again, don't have control, and it is a nervous system disability. And I'm going through it a second time with my younger son. But it's on the other side of that letting go, I think we can actually find some peace of like, and I think about mothers, especially with children who are quite disabled, and it's not fluctuating. And, they have to live their lives with the trade-offs that presents. And I think many amazing parents have found joy and meaning even given that circumstance. I think what's hard about PDA is that it's invisible to others. We don't have care teams and support groups and people that can see the disability and therefore give us empathy. And it's fluctuating. So we forget that it is a disability because it's like, well, they could do this at this point in their life. Now they can't. But
we've had lots of good times and good moments. And it's those when you can see what they're quote unquote capable at that time that you just want more of it. Like I want more of it for them because they
Yeah.
seem happy and regulated, and I want more of it for me for our family to have a bit more like peace and joy, which is slim pickings a lot of the time,
Yeah.
So the back and forth is hard. And like with Miles, with one of his friends, like I know he's like a perfect gentleman when he's with them and their family, and so like I know he can do it. I know he has that. It's just trying to figure out how to access it more readily. That's hard but they've got it,
Yeah. I mean, when they're not in their threat perception, which is what disables them mostly. For PDA kids, I say a very controversial non-PC thing, which is like it's often not the social communication skills that are lacking or disabling them. It's a nervous system that's disabling them because when they're not perceiving threat, like all the accommodations that Des had after his surgery, for example, the caregiving that he received and the lowered demands and all of that, you probably saw a lot more, quote, typical behavior.
Yeah, it was a long time ago now. It's hard to remember, but probably.
But you might have those windows, or like when you see them use it up on something they want to do, like going with a friend to a trampoline park, and then they come home and it's like a different kid, but it's like the real heart is what's behind the threat response.
Yeah. I think I just always need to remember to go, like, it's okay to go take the steps backwards in order, like, that's the only way we're going to move forward, to give them that bigger window.
Yeah. And maybe not thinking about it as like backwards. Let me give you an example. My older son's going to go to a new school next year. He's been doing great at his private school, but he's going to go to a different school. And so like what I've been talking about with my husband and him is like, you're going to need more accommodations. He's probably going to have more struggles because he's going to be accessing this new thing. And it's not stepping back. It's just we have to offset what's accumulating. And so we're going to go through a season that's harder.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean he hasn't made progress.
Yeah. Looking at it more broadly like that makes a lot of sense. I think it's easy to get wrapped up in the hard days, and not look at it broader like that. But that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. You're doing it.
Yeah. Just feels like there's always so much fluctuation. Like now Miles wants to try another school and he's motivated to do it. So like maybe that's enough, but like, it's just like exhausting to think about starting that whole process and knowing that we will have to accommodate in different ways to go through that season is just, it's exhausting to think about. Like, I know we're never going to get there, but I just want to like a little bit of time where everything's just a little bit more predictable.
Yeah, no, I mean, you and me both. I totally would love that too.
Yeah. It sounds ridiculous even saying it out loud.
No, it's not ridiculous at all. I think this is what everybody wants, but I think we're also like trained as spiritual warriors in a certain way as parents and PDAers to navigate the uncertainty of life because we've had such intense disciplinary training in a constant life of non-attachment, not knowing exactly what's going to happen the next day, and of letting go. And like, it is a skill that the more you can see it as such and recognize like what you're capable of, I think the less you'll feel like something is wrong or it's not going well or you're not doing it right. It's like, this is what it is.
Yeah. I think we changed so much of our life with this move. I left a job that I really liked, just was like all the things. We had a really great community and we just moved to a new place, and PDA families don't make new friends super easily because we don't leave the house. And so it feels like we made such big strides. And I guess, we have to look at it more about how they are progressing, even though like maybe the whole family unit isn't necessarily moving, like doing as well, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, just for perspective, like I left my former career and it took 2 full years of total, like a move and being a stay-at-home mom to both the boys before I even started like working on PDA stuff in my next, that was like my current, but my next venture. But there was like 2 years in there where it was like, my life is over. I lost my career. I used to live in Washington, D.C. and work in a prestigious nonprofit. And now I'm at home, you know, homebound with a kid who can't go to school. And like, it sucked. But, you know, you will get to the next phase, even if your sons stay where they are, and they won't.
Right.
Like, I know that because I've met you now and we've been chatting for an hour and I'm like, she's doing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Just need to stay the course and just continue on. There's nothing else to do except that. So
yeah. And if you can, I would not have liked it if someone said this to me in my first 2 years of being a stay-at-home mom, but if you can find like some humor in it, you know, of just like, I mean, that's what keeps my husband and I going now, just like, well, look at what's happening now, you know?
Yeah, I know. I feel like I've taken that stance from the beginning, just being like, oh my God, like, look at the crazy life that we have now. And my husband and I aren't ones to take ourselves very seriously either. And so, yeah, we try to. It's just hard when you lose, I mean, as you know, but when you lose a lot of like your self-identity of like what, you know, and have to change that, that's maybe almost even harder than accepting the children's reality, you know?
100%. Yeah. And so you've gone through an ego death. But what's on the other side is like actually probably a lot more freedom for you in terms of how you conceptualize yourself.
Yeah, maybe.
No rules. There's no rules anymore.
Right. Yeah.
It's more responsibility, but it's also more freedom.
I guess
to be who you are.
Except we can't leave the house very much. So it feels like more constrained.
Here's what I think. I think that like when all of us, anyone who's listening to this, you, anyone who's raising or raised a PDA child, like, are we going to look back and be like, my life was easy and fun and I got to travel as much as my friends and like, wow, I got to go to all these parties and like, I loved my big career and all that stuff? Maybe not. But are you going to be on your deathbed being like, what an adventure we had, and I'm really proud of the way I showed up to what life gave me? I think you will.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it too. I thought, you know, we were going to be sharing our lives with other families and growing up with our children together and doing things and going on the trips, and we used to go camping, you know, like all the things. And it's just not like that. And I have to realize that it's just a different thing that life's brought to us, and try to find the small joy. I mean, I think I've been doing that, been trying to, like, I do recognize the small wins and the small joys, even like, you know, we've sat down at the table, all 5 of us, to eat dinner like a couple times in the last little bit. And even if it ends in disaster, you know, the first 5 minutes were kind of nice. I feel like I can look at that. It's just, you get little tidbits and you just want more.
I know, you get hungry for more. I know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good reminders for sure.
All right. Well, I believe in you. I think you're doing a great job. I'm rooting for Miles and Des, and I think that experimenting with the equality, like layering on the equality accommodations for Des.
I think it would help for Miles too. Like, I feel like, because he needs to have that feeling of the aboveness and all that without just getting angry at somebody else, like without just taking that position over Des. I feel like maybe if he had more constructive way of doing that, that would be good for him too. So I can see doing that exercise with both of them in different ways.
Yeah. I call it therapeutic equalizing. Because it's like mindful and intentional, and you're sort of like facilitating the equalizing.
That could help me too, because equalizing sucks. And just feeling like you're being like ripped apart by your kid all the time. But like, if you go into it being like, I just feel like that gives you like an extra little suit of armor to like go into that time with.
Yeah. Set your Fitbit, 10 minutes. Let's do some therapeutic equalizing. Totally.
Okay.
Well, keep us updated. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
You as well.
And I know that I actually meant to look up on our study before I got on this call the percentage of families that had twins, because I know it's higher than the general population incidence of twins. So I know there's going to be a lot of families with twins that are excited to hear from you and siblings. But I really appreciate you sharing your story and your experience with our community.
Anytime. I appreciate getting any advice. So many times over the years, I'd be like, what would Casey do in this situation? So it's lovely to talk to you and to get to learn from you.
Awesome. Well, happy Friday, and thank you again.
Yeah, you as well.
Bye, Pam.
Bye.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to Pam for sharing her story. And we will see you again soon. Bye, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for being here with me at the At Peace Parents podcast. This is your source for all things related to understanding, supporting, accommodating, and advocating for your PDA child. To go deeper on any of these topics, check out my course offerings and masterclasses at the website www.atpeaceparents.com. To completely transform the way you think about and relate to your child and to bring peace and stability to your home, join us for the next cohort of the Paradigm Shift program.